Hello friends, and welcome to my channel for another video. Today we're going to be customizing this Mezco 112 scale Batman from BVS. Now I recently got the Jazz Inc. 112 scale BVS Batmobile. This is not it. And I wanted this figure to be worthy of standing in front of it, frankly. This is a great figure, but there is a lot that could be done to it to make it much more screen accurate and believable looking, and a better companion piece for that Batmobile. So that's what we're going to do today. We'll talk about supplies and what kind of work's going into it, and then we'll get to it. All right, so talking about supplies here now, obviously we're starting with the Mezco BVS figure. Again, it's a great figure. I do have a custom cape on this already, but yeah, great figure. I think that's a pretty good head sculpt. You know, bearing in mind that this is probably a 5 to 7 year old figure at this point. Mezco, I think, has come a long way in some of their engineering. You know, I think this one still holds up. I do feel like the heads on these are a little bit small. Maybe not proportionate to the height, but certainly to the width. Now, Affleck got huge for this movie. You know, they padded his suit. He was a big, imposing figure, but these shoulders are just too wide. Like, this is just way anatomically incorrect. In order to sort of offset that, I got a head that's a little bit bigger, and I filed it down a little bit already. This is also just a better sculpt. I don't know who sculpted this. I found this online from an eBay seller in China that has a ton of 3D printed heads. So the plan is to paint this up. I'm also going to do some shading on the suit to accentuate the musculature more. It actually, I mean, you can see when the light hits it in certain ways. They did a really good job of approximating like the abs and, you know, the other muscles. This material that they used, while it's really nice, like, I mean, they got this tiny little texturing and lines on there and stuff, it just doesn't do justice to like the depth of the sculpt. So what I want to do is go in there with some dark wash where the shadows would be cast from the muscles, just to kind of bring out what's there a bit more. To do that, I'm going to test. I have a knockoff version of this figure, and you know, it's like it's from AliExpress. It's not great. So I'm going to use that as the test subject basically. And once that is done, the plan is to seal it with this acrylic finish from Angelus Leather Paints. This stuff will dry with a clear sheen to it, because, you know, this suit has like kind of a almost leathery look to it, and here it just looks like fabric, like a pajama onesie almost. So I wanted to have that finish on it that will give it that kind of like reflective, slightly, you know, leathery look to it. We're going to do some testing on that. Worst case scenario, if it doesn't work, we'll have a brand new head on this, and it's going to look a lot better. As for the suit, I'm still trying to figure out the best path forward. I did some testing, and so you can see some of the lines I painted musculature just in like watered down black, because I wanted to see how it would show up with that Angelus clear coat over it. And what I found is that it does show up. This is in really good lighting right now, so this is looking pretty decent, but when I turn the lights off and it's just kind of like standard room light, this isn't working how I want it to. It's a little too dark. So I think I'm going to try something where I do a watered down coat of the Angelus. Now I tried different things here. There's like Angelus with a clear gloss varnish over it. There's thicker Angelus. There's just a basic wash of it, and it's kind of getting different results, but none of them are doing what I wanted it to, where it gives it more of like a shine. So I don't know that that's really in the cards for this. I think it's just gonna be a thing where the texture of the suit itself is gonna have to do most of the work, and I'm gonna have to do some underpainting, you know, sort of like paint the shadows in to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. So, but yeah, I think all in all, it looks better darker like this. I mean, if you look at the two next to each other, like this does look like a more screen accurate version of the color of his suit in the movie. So either way, I'm gonna be doing a coat of this Angelus on it. Fingers crossed I don't screw this up, because this guy is hard to get now and is expensive. So, but you know what? I've done this kind of thing a lot of times, and it always turns out okay. So I'm just going to trust myself. Little update on the head here. So as you can see, I've got the eyes and the mouth plate piece painted. You know, it's pretty difficult to get lifelike details at this scale, but I feel like I did a pretty good job. The nice thing about painting something like Batman is that once you do those parts, you're done, and then it's just black from there on out. So you can get a little sloppy around the edges, and it's fine because it'll get covered up. But let's look at this compared to the stock Mezco sculpt. Such a big difference. You know, obviously this one's a little bit bigger, but the shape of the cowl details, you know, in the furrowed brow and stuff. So yeah, all in all, this is going to be a huge improvement just with the head alone. So really excited to get this finished up and onto the figure. Okay, working on the suit paint here. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking a brush with a little bit of black acrylic paint mixed with water, and I'm just tracing it along the areas that I want the muscle definition to be at. I'm also looking at a photo from a 1/6 custom Hot Toys Batman that I really like that I saw on Instagram. Essentially, I'm just kind of using that as a guide. So I'm going to be doing all these side muscles in here. It's probably a little darker than it's going to end up looking on these lines right now because they are wet. And once that dries, it'll lighten up quite a bit. But I don't want to go too hard on it and do too much. I'd rather have it be like kind of a gradual thing. And, you know, if I need to go darker, I can. But you can always go darker. You can't go lighter. So here's the body all completed. Now, you saw earlier when this was much darker because it was wet. This is what it looks like when it's all dry and lightened up more. And then I also took some of that Angelus sealer and I went and did like a second layer. It's kind of like a mid layer. So I did the dark part first and the Angelus kind of in the middle part. And that gives it like a shading, like a top down shading. It's gonna look a little lighter on camera than it does to the naked eye. These things just kind of always do, but the suit has been darkened overall because of this, and it just gives it a much more believable musculature look to it. And then I left, you know, quote unquote highlights. So you can see the areas where it's lighter at the top of each muscle group is because I left the suit how it originally was. And so, yeah, we get that nice kind of contrast now. Here is the knockoff suit that I have that we looked at the back of. So you can see what a difference that wash does, but also you can see here, I mean, this one always fit more loose because it's a knockoff and it's just cheap, but the material is pretty much the same, and you can see the difference. Now beyond the muscles, I also did a little bit of silver painting, so you can see in these scratches and nicks and stuff in his VAT symbol I put silver paint, and then I also did some on his belt in various places. A little bit more wear and tear look to it. It's a little hard to see because the light is kind of, there we go. You can see those silver spots there. So just a tiny little bit of weathering to really push this a little bit further in terms of realism. Okay, so the head is also finished here and very pleased with the final result. It might be a little hard to tell, but he does have some gloss on the eyes that will catch in the light, and then a little bit on the mouth as well, just to give it like a believable wet look. The rest of the cowl black, and then I hit it with a little bit of a blue-gray dry brushing to match actually what they did in the original Mezco. You can kind of see it's very similar, but check out the difference there. I wish I knew the name of the sculptor on this to shout them out and direct you to them. I think I may have found who did the original sculpt. I think this is from Jao 3D Modeler on Instagram. Now, the one I have doesn't have a neck on it, and this one does. But, you know, it's possible that they sold the file for people to use with and without, or somebody bought the file and modified it. Very excited to get this onto the body. So let's take a look at the completed Batman. Now what you're seeing here is a custom Alfred figure to go with the BVS Batman. Eventually I'll be building a Batcave diorama for this car and these figures. And I wanted to have an Alfred because I've got a Michael Caine Alfred. I've got the 89 Alfred, Michael Go, I think was his name. It stood to reason I had to have one of these. So here's a shot of that, as well as a Justice League Tactical Batman that I've recently customized. I made some changes to him, and I'll talk about those in a moment here when we get him on the workbench. All right, so here's Batman all close up and put together. And you can just really see a difference in the lighting here. The facial details are much more apparent. You can really see that 5 o'clock shadow, which you couldn't in the shot where he's in front of the Batmobile very well. This is what it looks like to the naked eye much more closely. And as you can tell, this head sculpt like meets the neck pretty well. I mean, I have it tilted down, but if you have it, you know, up, I mean, it's pretty seamless looking from this angle. It's only when you really turn it that you kind of see it. But even then, you know, and I thought about molding it to be one piece, but I like having the articulation. And, you know, they did engineer the cowl so that Affleck could move his head in the costume. And so I think it's more accurate to have it be mobile rather than not. But yeah, just, I really, you know, I painted him looking up. Much more intimidating look for the character than if he's just looking straight at you. Super pleased with this. This is the version of this figure that I always wanted. And just for kicks, let's take a look at it in comparison one more time. Just night and day. Bless the sculptors who make this kind of stuff that we can just buy a 3D print of it. I personally think this is a perfect 112 Batfleck. So I'm very, very hyped on this. Now, as you saw, there were some bonus figures that I made. Let's get those on the bench and take a look at them. So here's my deceptively customized Justice League Tactical Batman. Firstly, I darkened all the visible suit areas with that same acrylic finisher from Angelus, and that just gives it a little bit more of an accurate look. Secondly, I added some silver to these damaged spots. You know, looking at the film, you can see some highlights in there, so and kind of on this ridge right here. So I just did a little bit of light work there. I also did my magnetic cape management trick. Now, those of you who watch my channel have probably seen me do this before, but you know, these capes are so unruly. Like, they fan out in a way that just is really messes up the silhouette of the figure, and it just looks like crap. So what I started doing recently is I actually put these little rare earth neodymium magnets, and I think there's like 3 or 4 in here, and I basically just stick them between the layers, and they hold it in place without damaging the cape at all. Now, the biggest change I made was to the head. So I repainted the eyes and the mouth area. Here is the original. I made the eyes looking up. I kind of ringed them with flesh tone paint to kind of show the area of the eye that you just can't really cover with makeup. This is the wet part where you know, your eyelids blink together, basically. Making him look up gives him less of an intense stare. And this version, this head that I repainted was like even kind of crazier and wide-eyed looking than this one is. This is actually like pretty reasonable. I painted more stubble on there. I gave him his little signature Affleck mole there. Just made it more lifelike. But then the biggest difference, let me pop it off. Oh, and I also added silver paint to these. I don't know what these things are, but they're supposed to be silver, and they were not on the original. The biggest difference is that I adjusted the chin area. So the issue with this head sculpt, for me, I never looked right and I couldn't figure it out. And I realized it was too bottom heavy. Like, this part sticks out too wide. It should be more like this. And also his chin doesn't stick out far enough from the cowl. Like, it just looks a little bit too enveloped inside. It's probably kind of hard to see the difference because it is subtle, but I cut the bottom of this and moved it back. And this one was actually worse. I didn't realize at the time that this was actually just the better head sculpt for whatever reason. Better paint applications, etc. But I moved the jaw forward a bit inside of it and then re-glued it, and that narrowed the jaw part of it a bit more to make it more accurate. So overall, I think it just gives it a much more accurate look. And in comparison, let's look at the McFarlane version. Now, I actually picked one of these up because I thought I would just repaint this head and put it on the body, but what I found is the McFarlane head is actually smaller than the Mezco head, which is ridiculous. You know, that just goes to show you how off their sizing is. I do think it's a better head sculpt, than the Mezco one, unfortunately. But like I said, it didn't really fit very well. Here, we can look at it on the body. It looks really good on there. Like, it looks damn good. And I really thought, well, you know, what if I just add like a 5 o'clock shadow to this and repaint the black part so that it lines up and, you know, you don't have flesh color on the cowl line there. Do the goggles and stuff, but you can see it's just too small. Like, it just does not fit on there. So I think it actually scales really well with this body, but the neck size on the Mezco figure is far bigger because it attaches differently. So, you know, I could probably make it fit pretty well. I think the head on the Mezco one sits a little bit too low anyway. But yeah, that does look really good. So if you have one of these, you want to pop it on this body, I think it is an improvement. But I also wanted the ability to see his eyes, and it's a pretty rare variant that they made where the goggles are up on the McFarlane figure. So this one has the best of both worlds. And it's just a you know, better material in the head sculpt as well. So there's the goggles up, and when we put them down, I think this thing looks really awesome. So that is my updated Justice League Mezco Batman. Very, very pleased with this, and I can't wait to have him in a larger display with the rest of the league and a bunch of other custom DCEU figures that I've been working on. All right, and now a closer look at my guy Alfred. I really loved this casting of Jeremy Irons as Alfred, and I loved his performance both films that he was in, and I really wanted to have this version of Alfred on my shelf. I still need to make an apron for him, so that's coming, and then I'll probably feature that in my DC figure roundup that I'm going to do. But I wanted to show him as you know, contextually very relevant to the other figures I have in this video. So this is a Noda Toys slim body. I've got a shirt from GPS Lot. The vest, pants, and shoes are from a Soap Studios Newt Scamander. The tie I made from a piece of, like, there's a jacket overlay that comes with this that goes under a larger trench coat. And so it's almost like a vest in itself, but it doesn't connect. It just kind of drapes over like this. So I took a piece of that and cut it and made this tie, because he does have like a wool tie in the film. This isn't exactly what he wore. You know, he had several different outfits. I went with the closest things I could find and just kind of give it the feel of it. And once he has the brown apron over, I think it'll all blend together even more. But yeah, very, very pleased with this. The head is from Action Figure Customs on eBay. You can check them out on Instagram as well. So I painted this myself, as I always do. And then the glasses are from GPS Lot, and then they come silver. They're like very, very thin. I think aluminum maybe. They're super thin. Like if you bend them too many times, they'll break. But they're perfect for this scale. So I just painted it a base color of kind of a reddish brown, and then added black and some kind of golden brown, and that gave it that sort of tortoise shell finish that his glasses have. It's really hard to see. I mean, they're super tiny, but you can kind of make it out. I know the picture is not great at this zoom level, but yeah, it looks pretty good, pretty accurate. So that is going to do it for this video. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I invite you to click the like button and hit subscribe and join me as I make cool stuff. Custom figures, dioramas, vehicles to go with the figures. I review new stuff that I get on the channel. If you're looking for other ways to support this, I've got t-shirts available. My Head on Swivel shirt, as well as several other action figure and comic book themed shirts, are available in my Redbubble shop. If you've never used Redbubble, it's pretty great. You pick the color shirt, the style, and the design you want, and they ship it right to you. Now, if you're not a t-shirt person, but you like comics, I've got several comics and graphic novels available, namely my books High Crimes, Count, and Retroactive. High Crimes is kind of Breaking Bad meets Cliffhanger. Retroactive is like James Bond meets Groundhog Day, and Count is my sci-fi reimagining of the Count of Monte Cristo. Think kind of a, John Wick meets Batman meets Zorro. It's a cool story with swashbuckling action and sword fights and vehicle chases, and it's about redemption, revenge, and revolution. So those are all available at your local comic shop, bookstore, or at the links in the description below. So to everyone who's picked up a shirt already or one of my books, thank you so much. Like, it means the absolute world to me, and I really, really appreciate it. It really helps make it so that I can do this kind of stuff and bring you more videos. Couldn't ask for anything more, so thank you. So that is going to do it for this one. Until next time, keep your head on swivel.